Welcome to Vintage SF. I'm Richard Rempel, and today we're going to talk about Odd John by Olaf Stapledon, 1935. The first Superman story, and still by all odds the best, according to Damon Knight. But let's first talk about this cover itself. We have an illustration by Eamon O'Donoghue, and it's an awesome illustration of a person in a spacesuit, retro spacesuit, and we can see Saturn in the background there, a spaceship off of his shoulder there. The problem is, none of this is in the novel. We never leave Earth. The first edition hardcover from Methuen in 1935 has a much more accurate portrayal of Odd John. The artist, Eric Fraser. Then in 1951, Galaxy Publishing Corporation, in their series Galaxy Science Fiction Novels, number 8, again had a depiction of Odd John that is accurate to the novel. The cover art here is by Ed Emshwiller. But let's get back to the SF Masterworks edition and take a look at the back cover. One of the advantages of owning the SF Masterworks edition of Odd John is the introduction by Adam Roberts, but I would caution readers to read this introduction after reading the novel. The back blurb says, "John Wainwright is a freak, a human mutation with an extraordinary intelligence which is both awesome and frightening to behold. Ordinary humans are mere playthings to him. Their feelings, and sometimes even their lives, are expendable, and Odd John has a plan to create a new order on Earth, a new supernormal species. But the world is not ready for such a change." To learn more about Olaf Stapledon and his novel, I took a look at the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, John Clute and Peter Nichols, as well as the illustrated edition of the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction. William Olaf Stapledon, 1886 to 1950. His key works, Last and First Men, Star Maker, Odd John, and Sirius. All four are published in the SF Masterworks. Stapledon was a UK writer and philosopher, born to well-to-do parents near Liverpool, where he spent the greater part of his life. He admitted that he lived chiefly on dividends and other ill-gotten gains. The name Olaf does not indicate foreign antecedents. His parents happened to be reading Carlyle's The Early Kings of Norway at the time. For a short period, he worked in the family shipping office in Port Said, Egypt, an experience he used in his highly autobiographical last novel, A Man Divided, from 1950. There is scattered evidence that the international flavor of Port Said influenced his complex ideas about true community. His service with the Friends Ambulance Unit in World War I helped him formulate his pacifism. He took a doctorate in philosophy at Liverpool University in 1925. In Odd John, a story between Jest and Earnest from 1935, the individual Superman appears, although his attributes are spiritual and intellectual, quite divorced from the Superman of the comics and pulp magazines. Odd John is an extremely eloquent and extremely ironic tale of a man who represents a positive mutation, an evolutionary leap forward through the ranks from first to second man, and even further, he telepathically gathers his peers together on an isolated island, but when the normals invade his insular stronghold, he discovers that he has evolved too far to fight back. The island is destroyed, and we remain first men in the mire. Lest you fear that I've been giving too much away, this novel reveals these things in the first chapter. We have a narrator who is a person older than Odd John, a friend of the family, but eventually somewhat of a servant to John. After this rather direct foreshadowing of the end of the novel, we learn about John's birth. He truly is an odd person, physically and mentally. While his physical development is slow, his mental development is off the charts. We see his growth, and we see how his mental abilities eventually take control of his body. He is able to direct his body in ways that we cannot. Again and again, we see how advanced he is as he moves into his toddler years, into his preteen and teenage years. There are some odd and disturbing sequences here in this development. If someone is truly the next level of evolution, how can we understand who they are? The structure of this novel is also used really to comment on society, to comment on politics, philosophy, and evolution. Remember, this novel was published in 1935, well before the Second World War. Here are some of the comments that Odd John makes about society and about the path that some of the nations in Europe are taking. Stapledon talks about the need to believe, for something to unite us. The crowds who can't swallow the Christian dope are terribly in need of something, though they don't know what, or even know they're in need at all. And this deep need gets mixed up with their hate need, and, if they're middle class, it gets mixed up also with their fear of social revolution. And this fear, along with their hate need, may get played on by any crook with an axe to grind, or by any able man with an itch for bossing. That's what happened in Italy. That sort of thing will spread. I'd bet my boots that in a few years there'll be a tremendous anti-lift movement all over Europe, inspired partly by fear and hate, partly by that vague, fumbling suspicion that there's something all wrong with scientific culture. It's more than an intellectual suspicion. It's a certainty of the bowels. Call it a sort of brute, blind religious hunger. Didn't you feel the beginnings of it in Germany last year when we were there? A deep, still unconscious revulsion from mechanism, and from rationality, and from democracy, and from sanity. That's it. A confused craving to be mad, possessed in some way. Just the thing for the well-to-do haters to use for their own ends. That's what's going to get Europe. And its power depends on its being a hopscotch of self-seeking, sheer hate, and this bewildered hunger of the soul, which is so worthy and so easily twisted into something bloody. And a few pages later, I ask myself a question, namely this: is the plight of the world today a mere incident, an illness that might have been avoided and may be cured? Or is it something inherent in the very nature of your species? Well, I have got my answer. Homo sapiens is a spider trying to crawl out of a basin. The higher he crawls, the steeper the hill. Sooner or later, down he goes. So long as he's on the bottom, he can get along quite nicely, but as soon as he starts climbing, he begins to slip. And the higher he climbs, the farther he falls. It doesn't matter which direction he tries. He can make civilization after civilization, but every time, long before he begins to be really civilized, skid. We, the first men, are being left behind. But we also fight that which is progress. The ending is tragic not only for John and his fellow mutants, but for us as all of humanity. This novel is about the journey, about commenting on society. The writing style is expansive and far-reaching. It's accessible because it follows a main character through the eyes of the person who is serving him, who is a guardian to him, and who is recording these events. John wants this story told. Stapledon was surprised when someone referred to this as a classic science fiction novel. He didn't know the term. He just thought he was writing a good novel. He wasn't looking to be genre-specific. He wanted this to be accessible to all. This was a commentary on society. This is definitely not the pulp fiction of the 30s. Some say this one should be held in high regard, just like Brave New World or 1984. The designation of science fiction seems to have held it back, and yet those in science fiction haven't fully embraced it, perhaps until now. So if you want a thoughtful, interesting literary read in science fiction, this one's for you. I think it's also a little bit on that disturbing scale as those other novels I mentioned. What are we to those who would come after us? I give Odd John 8.5 out of 10. Have you read Odd John? What are your thoughts? How about other Stapledon novels? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, keep reading.